All right, everybody, welcome to another wrestling podcast. We are so honored to have our guest with us today. Not only is he an activist, he is also a musician, a wrestling fan, an all-around geek just like all of us, and your separate favorite hip-hop artist, Nur-D. Welcome to the show.
Oh, what is up, everybody? Thanks for having me on the show. Super
Thank you so
excited.
much.
Yeah.
So I have to be very honest with you. I really want to start it out like this. So one of the best, I'm going to say, going today, for anybody who's watching this who doesn't know, immediately go to wherever you consume music and check out Nur-D. My story with you begins with my wife. Believe it or not, I've been a longtime wrestling fan. I'm 40, almost 41, so I've been watching it all my life. And my wife started to get into it, and we went to a few shows or whatever. But ultimately, one day she was like, "Hey, can you listen to this, like, and tell me what you think?" And so I started to listen to, I believe, probably one of the first songs I listened to was like "Gunshot Sounds."
Oh, yeah.
And you have a line about Sheamus and Cesaro in there, so I was like, "Well, I'm hooked. This is it." So I would definitely want to shout out to my wife Mary for getting me on the
Oh,
Nur-D train.
Mary, thank you, Mary, for rocking the Shrek. It's we're here for the recommendation for the significant others out there.
Absolutely, and so I wanted to start with that. I wanted to hit like the music pretty hard. So I guess right off the bat, how long have you been, I guess, professionally doing music?
Yeah. I mean, so I've been doing music for a while, but professionally as like in my this hip hop stage of things since 2018. So relatively not a whole long time in comparison to some of my peers, but it has been a wild ride since then. And you can imagine if you start your music journey in 2018, a lot happens in between then and now. And so it is it's been a journey, but it has been a wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I guess I know you grew up in New York for a little
Well, I
bit.
was born in New York, and I was grew up more prominently in the little suburb of Minnesota
Okay.
called Rosemont.
Rose.
Yes, it is. It is a lovely suburb of the Twin Cities. But yes, I was born in New York, the Bronx, New York, and I when we moved when I was young to Rosemont, and that's where I went to like the high school, and that's where I kind of like spent the majority of my formative years was in the wonderful town of Rosemont. Go Irish! We out here. That was our high school team, Fighting Irish. So we out here.
That's awesome. So, suburb, obviously, moving from New York to sort of the Midwest, there's probably some adjustments there.
It's different.
So
It's a different culture for sure.
yeah, yeah. Did you find, is that like, how did you decide that you wanted to kind of become, interested in what you became ultimately interested
Yeah.
in? Were some of your influences?
I mean, I think when you kind of get into the music aspect anyway, like the first people that I was really listening to was like gospel and R&B because that's a lot of what was played at my house. So that was like the original thing, you know what I mean? And I really loved 80s hair metal. Like that's honestly still my favorite genre to this day. Like I love me some Sister Christian by Night Ranger. Like I can rock that song every day. And like the pageantry and like the just the loudness, the colors, the character. It really got me and stuck with me. And then when I started listening to hip hop, like artists like Andre 3000, who's my favorite particular rapper, is like again, colors, character, story, really kind of meld that all for me. And so that's like getting into this sort of stuff, you kind of just fall into it. Some of it's cultural, it's just around you, but some of it's just like something catches your eye one day and you're like, well, what's this? And then you just fall into it all the way.
I mean, it's funny. It's not that different from like the pro wrestling business, obviously. So we're
Oh,
going to get into some of that too, but there's a lot of, the performance aspect of it. There's the theatrics of it. And so I think that's why for a lot of people who've never watched it or, maybe just dip their toe in when they start to really become a fan, again, to go back to my wife, she was a performer. She did some acting and stuff and never realized how much the worlds combined. So
it's
um
similar. It is a very similar thing, and you can take aspects of one and apply it to the other and get really cool results. That's one of the reasons I love professional wrestling and music so much. People ask me when I perform, I'll like, well, who are some of the artists? Who are some of the people that you look up to as performers? And a lot of times I'm like Macho Man Randy Savage, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Shawn Michaels. Like they were performers. They would perform their bits. And so you can look to them to get the pageantry, the kind of swagger that you need to be on stage. And I think you'd see if people were honest, they'd tell you that it happens a lot more than you think.
oh, absolutely. And so you mentioned, like you're performing and all that. So growing up, do you have like a moment that you realized that you started to get that like urge to perform? I know your career really, you said, jumped off in 2018, but like
Mm.
were you doing stuff in high school? Were you doing
Oh
stuff?
yeah. Well, I was in a bunch of bands that didn't work out. That's the thing. Like any musician who tells you they started and the first thing they did was the most successful thing they did, is not telling you the truth, probably, or they're Taylor Swift and they had like a bunch of money. Like the reality is that a lot of times when you're in the creative field in any art form, you have to do things a bunch before it clicks. So I was in rock and roll bands right out of high school. I played keys in a bunch of bands. I was sang in a band that we kept changing our name to different names as we went along. But yeah, I was in rock and roll for like I think I did that for 8, 9 years unsuccessfully, like from high school on. Just driving across the state, driving across the country, for $50 and a slice of cold pizza in a van with no heat, like in the dead of winter, like because I loved it. I loved performing, and I was the moment I was like, I want to do this. Is always you can look at different parts, and it's like a building block of things. But I can remember one time I was in a theatrical production of the musical Cats. For all of you cool people out there, I was Busterford Jones in that particular production, and I there was a blizzard that knocked the power out at our school mid performance during my solo, and I didn't stop singing. I just kept singing. And at the end, the generators kicked back on. Everybody got back into place. Never missed a beat. Like it was just like 16 bars of like a cappella, me just singing to the whole dark auditorium. And when I finished, I got a standing ovation for like it was like a minute, and it's like the third song of the show, so it's not even like the end. Like it was just like everyone was just so excited about the fact that I didn't stop, and the fact that like they kept going, and the show went on so seamlessly. And that standing ovation was like, well, I'm going to do this forever. Like I don't know how I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing I've ever done, and I want to be able to feel this feeling again. So that's what I really locked in on performing. I didn't know exactly how I was going to perform, but I knew I was going to perform forever.
Now, was this something that was like, obviously when you decided that you were going to do it, did your family or friends or anybody, were they like, this is going to be tough road, or they all were all in?
Nobody really thought this was a good idea. Like the thing is, if you are lucky enough to have a support system in your family that like will just like support you regardless of how crazy the thing is, that's amazing. That's a wonderful thing, and like you should like buy a lottery ticket because you are in a very lucky situation. But I think with a lot of people, you know, they see it, they love to consume art and entertainment, but they don't really see it as a career because it just seems so fantastical, and and these people just seem larger than life, and they know you. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, so it's one thing for you to look at Dwayne the Rock Johnson and be like, oh wow, like of course, like who else could he be? But I guarantee you that there are people in his life that were like, are you sure? Like you maybe because they know you as Dwayne. They knew me as Matt. They didn't see Nur-D like 10 years ago. They
Yeah.
didn't see Nur-D back when I was in high school. They just saw Matt, and yeah, he's fun and he likes to, he do stuff, but he should really get a job. Like, you know what I mean? Because like, how are you gonna do it? And there were certainly parts and times in my life where that was exactly good advice, and it was sensible advice, and it was advice given out of love and kindness for me and my stubborn desire to do this. Like, sort of just like overshot it, and so
Yeah.
it's not a negative. It's just not everybody's on board until the ship comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is always very interesting to me, and it's somewhat of it's just telling. I'm a product of the 80s, 90s, where physical media and stuff was the thing, and it carries on today. I'm a collector of all kinds of things, but do you remember the first piece of physical music media that you either purchased or was gifted to you, like a record, a cassette, a CD? Is there something that you remember that you had?
Oh yeah. So I remember the first physical piece of music media that I purchased for myself because
Yeah.
I wanted it. Was the soundtrack to the live action Scooby Doo movie
All right.
on CD. And I saw it, and I liked the movie, and so I bought that, and then Mario's album. What was that album name? It was the whatever album had "Braid Your Hair" and "Just a Friend" on it.
Okay.
I had those, so I bought those two at the same day.
Yes.
But the first one I got was Scooby Doo, and then I saw it was two for $10 or something, or because it was a bargain bin of stuff, and I was
Yeah.
just like, I got the other one, and um, I wore those CDs out. Look, I wore those CDs out.
There's no shame. Those are some bangers from back in the day for sure.
Yup. You want to hear a little Romeo do Brick House? You, you got to
Of
get
course you
yourself
do.
the live action Scooby Doo soundtrack on CD.
It's, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, not too far off. I was from the Midwest originally, and I'm now in New York. But what's interesting is my first thing was probably not necessarily because of the time frame, but because the Midwest was a little more landlocked, I'll say. But my first thing that I remember was a green cassette tape of The Lion King, like the movie.
Ooh,
Like that was,
yup.
and I same thing, like on the bus to school, on the bus home, that. But I mean, and then also I was from a period too where you could take a cassette tape and put it in a radio and record off of, and that
Yup.
was a big thing that was happening at the time too. So that's going to be a lead in for what I'm about to start talking about too. But um, you know, you're known, at least to me and to a lot of people, I would say, as specifically a hip hop artist. But you have a very unique voice, and you mentioned, doing cats and things like that. So, um, I mean, is there a reason that you chose the hip hop route versus just like, I guess, traditional like singing?
Well, for me, I always loved hip hop. I've always been a fan. I mean, obviously, you would consume it. I enjoyed it, but like, I never felt like I had anything to add. I think for a lot of time, I just assumed that hip hop was a certain type of thing, and I wasn't really educated on the depth and like the breadth of the genre. And then when I started hearing other artists who had similar experiences to me or lived in places like I did, like mostly white areas, like suddenly, and I heard hip hop from them, I was like, oh, I could do this. Wait a minute. Like, oh, I was assuming that if I wasn't from here, I wasn't like, that's not really your area. And when I started hearing people, like, I remember Chance the Rapper's coloring book coming out and just being like, oh no, this is exactly how I was raised. Like, I could do this. You know what I mean? And Chicago is in the Midwest. So you don't think about it, but it is. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, I'm from, we're cousins, like, essentially. Like, we're right off the bat. So that really what made it happen. And also just like I was able to be more free. At the time, back in like the early 2000s, being a rock and roll, like pop rock wasn't really diverse. It
Hmm.
still really isn't, but it definitely wasn't that. Like,
Yeah.
if you weren't the Jonas Brothers, if you weren't a group of skinny, white, brown hair, like, guys, you
Yeah.
were not going to make it. Like, there was nothing you could do. And here I am, I'm a chubby black dude. It's not the same. You know what I mean? And the type of singing I did was different. My influences were different. So even in the rock music and pop rock music I was making, it didn't never it never caught. It never
Okay.
caught, and there was a lot of doors. But when I started doing hip hop, I realized I didn't have to be industry. I didn't have to be cool. I didn't have to be like, the sexy, guys. I could just be myself, which I find sexy most of the time. But like I could be myself more freely, and it just sort of it's a testament to like trusting your process and trusting yourself. Because when I did that, things just sort of fell into place one after another. Like, it just boom, 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 boom. Like I said, the journey's been rapid and wild.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because they always talk about like the best wrestlers out there. It's just them with the knob turned up to 11
Yep.
or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I feel like that's what I'm hearing like from you. Like once you were able to kind of fit into what you were looking at, that's when it all started to take off,
Yep,
which is
exactly.
super inspiring as well. Just and it's something that not only have you kind of put that out there, but also, you're a big proponent of body positivity and all those things, which,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those crazy things that I think I know I at least take for granted. Like there was a time probably in high school or whatever where you worry about your appearance, but like the moment that you can start to let go of some of those things, like you don't have to wear the same clothes as everybody, you don't have to look
Yep.
the same way. Like that's really and again, that's what's funny is when you look at the world of professional wrestling or even music or whatever, there's so many different people and it's not just specifically for them, it can be for everyone.
Exactly.
And it's so it was definitely very refreshing. I started to do a deep dive obviously after everything that my wife's like, yeah, listen to this. And so I was surprised and just it's a breath of fresh air to kind of see that out of somebody in the mainstream who can kind of enact those sort of changes. So
Hey, well, thank you. And it is like the goal is to like create music that everyone can get behind, or at the very least, create music that has an opportunity for people who want to just like experience something new. They can, I remember those days being like, I don't look good, or I can't be a certain thing or go a certain place, and like, I don't subscribe to that like wholesale. I think that there is room to express yourself however you need to express yourself, that can be really positive and really cool. So like, yeah, I'm glad that it's coming across as well
yeah,
as I like it to.
absolutely, absolutely. So we have a lot of people that are going to be watching this, and a lot of wrestling fans, and obviously, I want to know a lot more about you and all that, but I definitely want to start to weave some of this in there. So, um, you born in New York, moved out to Minnesota, which actually, believe it or not, as you know, there are a lot of people who came out of Minnesota, some of the greats all the time.
Oh, yo, Minnesota's got a foothold in the professional wrestling community.
Absolutely. So was that happening like when did you start getting into wrestling?
Oh, I started. So, granted, I live in a world, right? I was born in the 1990s. Like, I live in a world where wrestling was always around. there's a section of time where wrestling was getting big for people at that time. I lived in a world where it was probably at its biggest since now that it was. You know what I mean? Stone Cold and The
Yeah.
Rock were happening at when I was a kid. Um, but I wasn't into wrestling at that time because my mom wasn't into the violence. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Or the perceived violence.
Yes.
And but I remember back when I had a little bit more autonomy and I could choose what I wanted to watch. Because like a lot of times, you make fun of wrestling if you've never seen it before.
Yeah.
That's what everybody does. If you've never seen it, you're like, oh, it's fake. So I was in that contingent like in middle school because I was like, oh, it's fake party.
Yeah.
But I watched the Hurricane one day. I could not tell you where I watched it. I don't know what the match was. I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been when him and The Rock were going back and forth. I just caught it. And I was a huge comic book nerd. You can see a bunch of comic books and stuff
Yeah.
behind it. I've always been a huge comic book nerd. So all of a sudden I see this straight up superhero on the television. And I was like, what is it? Who is it? Like, well, what are their powers? What are the things? Because that's what I wanted to categorize it, lock it up. And in seeing the Hurricane, I was introduced to the rest of like the roster and the rest of the concept, and I fell in love. I think the next person I saw was Rey Mysterio, and then John Cena, like
Sure.
early John Cena, and I was like, this is amazing. Wait a minute, like everyone was telling me how fake it is, was like it's no more fake than any other show I watch. Like, so I was just like, well, then let me just take a look at it, and I knew I was hooked forever. So that's how I got started.
Okay.
And obviously as I got older, I branched out into all the different types of professional wrestling there are. But
Sure.
like what I knew I was hooked forever, and this is a controversial opinion, so
Okay.
get ready,
I can't
is
wait.
as growing up, I never liked The Undertaker. I never liked The Undertaker. I was so frustrated why everyone was so happy with him. Because again, as a kid, you're watching this, and again, a kid in my background, like I was raised pretty evangelical, and so this concept of this evil undead wizard person who they kept calling Big Evil at the
Yep.
time, like I was just like, why are we cheering for this? Why is everyone in on this? Like it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Sure.
And I mean, I get the lore now, but like at the time, it really didn't really click. And he was on SmackDown. I don't know who he was doing something with, but this guy runs out of the crowd, jumps up into the air, grabs him by grabs his neck and falls on the ground and knocks him out and goes on top of the giant fist back when SmackDown the giant fist, and then goes like this. Like and everyone and and he was in street clothes as far as
Yeah.
and we didn't have cable, so I didn't know Raw existed. Like so I was just like a fan just ran up and did this thing, and they're like, Randy who? Like Randy Orton, and I was like, whoever this guy is my new favorite guy.
Yes.
I didn't know that Randy was a bad guy at the time. I mean, I don't know why everyone was booing, because I was like, he finally got the guy everyone said we can't get.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I was hooked forever, because it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen at the time. And like Randy Orton's still like in my top 10. Like, just so I love professional. I could talk to you about professional wrestling for the rest of your life. I guarantee.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I mean, you mentioned something. This may be difficult, but I'd love for you to attempt it. So you said top 10, but do you have your Mount Rushmore?
Oh my gosh, my four horsemen of wrestling, beautiful. It changes, I think. Every so often it changes. But if I'm just going like my personal favorite, because there's a difference between who affected the business the best and my personal favorite. I would say my personal favorites in no particular order would be The Rock. I think it just is what it is.
Yep.
Rock, John Cena.
Sure.
This is so tough. The Rock, John Cena. I'm gonna say Finn Balor.
Yeah.
I just think he's so good
Yep.
And then if I had to do one last person, that's like the favorite. Oh, I'd say Randy Orton. I think. I honestly, I would. If it's not Randy Orton, it would be all of the New Day. Like, if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not Randy Orton, it would be the New Day as like an entity
Yes.
because they are sort of like for such a long time in the tenure of their creation. I mean, I know like Kofi Kingston had a big run before that, and Xavier Woods was over in TNA, but like
Yep.
New Day for me is a testament to letting wrestlers do their bits and letting them like express themselves and like black excellence and like fun and like character development and branding and all of this stuff like you they don't get talked about enough that way. But I think that the New Day as like a unit should be talked about the same way we talk about the Horsemen, we should talk about it like all of these people because
Yeah.
like they're that good. I think
Yeah.
they're that big.
Well, and I mean, I'll just say this too, like their longevity is super impressive. You mentioned that Xavier or Consequences Creed was
Yep.
in, TNA, and then you've got Big E, which was down in FCW for a while before getting called up to
Yep.
NXT and all that stuff. But, you know, I it's funny for me because wrestling is one of those things that I feel like as long as people don't like spoil it for people, like growing up, I could like who I liked. Like one of my favorites growing up was Junkyard Dog. Like I didn't know that there was a world out there that was like, oh, you shouldn't like that person because of X, Y, or Z. Like I've got very odd wrestling tastes, but I definitely I love that about the New Day is that you see the crowds and when they come out, it's everyone. It's not just
Right.
like a section or whatever. And I've always appreciated that about New Day, and to take what they were given, which was probably not going to be good at all.
Just not was exactly like it was not good. It was so stereotypically
Yes.
like that, and and to take it and
Yep.
just go like we're just gonna be a little weirder. Like we're gonna
Yeah.
be do our own thing, and like the heel from heel to face was such a like it's hard to think that the New Day was a heel stable for a really long time.
Yeah.
But like especially because you have Kofi Kingston, Big E, and Xavier Woods, like these beloved wrestlers, like beloved
Yeah.
wrestlers, to think that what really got them over was being bad guys, like was being like
Yeah.
bad guys. And chicken shit bad guys too.
Yes.
Like not
Yes.
just regular bad guys. That's just like, oh, like it's crazy because they trusted the process, they allowed themselves to do it. And then when they could tell that it was time to like switch and go back to face, they they did. You know what I mean? And they did with gangbusters. Think about that Budios cereal reveal at WrestleMania. What was it? WrestleMania 28? I don't know. But like that is an icon. It's iconic. It's
Yeah.
so crazy how over they got,
Yeah.
and they're like Jericho. Like they kept changing the thing just a little bit and sell a crap ton of merch. We have unicorn horns now.
Yep.
Everybody get unicorn horns. We have bootios. Everybody get bootios. Hey, we got pancake. We're doing pancakes now.
Yep.
Everybody get pancakes. You know what I mean? Like it was branding, character work, in-ring wrestling skill. There is very few stables in the history of professional wrestling that has done as well with what they were given
Sure.
as the New Day.
Yeah, and I think too, like what's important, I mean, I think just across the board is just, again, representation and the fact that I see, like I've seen growing up, most of us had Hulk Hogan t-shirts growing up as kids,
Mm-hmm.
but the machine wasn't really, creating merch for everyone. And that caused some
Oh.
of these people to go out and do their own, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I go to shows all the time and I get to see, one of my favorites, my wife's favorite of like currently is Bianca Belair. So
Love Bianca Belair,
she's
yes.
all in, But we go to these shows and you see all the little girls with the hair and all that.
Braid, yeah.
Like you just don't think of that whenever you're just in that mindset of like this thing was created for me. And
Yeah.
now it's like starting to open up a little bit to where and I definitely credit like there's a lot of controversy about what's going on with Vince and all that, but like I definitely credit the people who are in charge now to see that sort of that change and the need for that. Like they're going overseas for these pay-per-views. They're
Yep.
going, they're getting people from all over.
The business doesn't. I think we lived in a world, like I said, for a while. Like there was no other thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like we're living in a world where professional wrestling is having a second renaissance. I think globally, the business doesn't stop with any one person. That's like a thing that has been said for a while, but it's never really been like we never really had to see it on such a massive scale,
sure.
especially with WWE. Like we said, professional wrestling doesn't stop for anybody. The show goes on. It's the only live show that happens 365 days of the year, and
Yep.
it has and it's canon. Like
Yeah.
it's a canonical story that you can trace back to Carney's
Yep.
like before the camera was around. Like you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it's a canonical story that's lasted for generations and it doesn't stop for anybody. And we are now seeing as the general viewer, the general watcher of professional wrestling is a more globally minded and global like I don't know, audience. It is now growing to fit that new norm.
Yeah.
There is not a single person who watches professional wrestling that doesn't have access to the internet at this point. Like they're like it is. We are bigger than the city that you come to come see us at, and I like how professional wrestling is growing to meet that need. And what is one of the reasons why I have said I've been on record of saying that we are living in the greatest time of professional wrestling. I know a lot
Absolutely.
of people are like, "Oh, well, what about the Attitude Era? What about XYZ?" And I say it was very good, really great, even silver medal for
Yeah.
sure. But we're living in a day and age where everybody can be themselves. Like black, brown, LGBTQ, and women wrestlers all getting to main event, all getting like before it wasn't that. It was
Yeah.
good, but it was good for just this group of people. And
Sure.
everybody else got whatever they could get. And now it's opened up where it's like you can find yourself in a professional wrestling show where before you couldn't. You know what I mean? Look at the
Yeah.
acclaim over on
Yeah.
AEW. Like a openly gay man being one of the top people on the roster,
Yep.
champion on the roster, like crowd chanting, he's gay when some girl tries to hit on him.
Yep.
Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like people like Sunny Kiss and like that's amazing
Yeah.
compared to where we used to be
Oh,
where
absolutely.
we're the biggest representation we had was Gold Dust.
Yeah.
Like you know what I'm saying? Or what was his name? Was it Rico? What
Oh,
was
yeah.
that?
Rico. Yeah. He was.
Rico? Yeah, Rico or Chuck and Billy. Do you
Yep.
know what
Yep.
I mean? Like so, it's just like we're living in the best day and age of watching professional wrestling. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks were the first ever black wrestlers to headline
Yep.
WrestleMania in a singles match, like ever. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing. So I'm a proponent of professional wrestling. I walk around, I profess it. I talk about professional wrestling almost as much as I talk about One Piece. So like it's that serious.
And so I'm gonna really wrap into these two things real quick. So you're very musically inclined and you like professional wrestling. And one of the biggest things about professional wrestling to me, and one of the things that I love so much is the entrance music.
Up, it's 75% of your character.
Yeah, and there's been some just incredible themes out there for any uninitiated people. Like the Jim Johnston era that of themes is great. They've done a lot of stuff over the years, but that's really where I think some of the golden age of themes come from. So do you have any of those that you just like that you love more than others?
Man, I have so many themes that I just thoroughly enjoy. Both some are both are like classic that everybody likes them, and some people don't like at all. Because I said like in professional wrestling, your entrance music is 75% of your character. Why? Because anybody can do not anybody. A lot of people can do a super kick. A lot of people can do a suplex. And yeah, you might be able to do it like really well, but like people have seen that before. Your entrance is the thing outside of your finishing move that is your thing. Like,
Yes.
and so you get people over on your character with your entrance. And so one of my favorite entrances in the more modern day was Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance music is perfect.
Yep.
It's perfect. I didn't like the rap version of it, but like the original one, it
Yep.
got number one on Spotify for a reason. Like
Yes.
it is good. It is a very good entrance music. You get this sense of like rock star energy is like the way he comes down. Again, when you watch New Japan and professional wrestling over there, there's just a very different vibe. And
Sure.
like culturally, it's different. So him coming over and bringing that chaos, no pun intended,
Yeah.
to his entrance is just really, really good. That's one that I like a whole lot. I will say that this is going to be a controversial. This is a
Hey,
controversial. I liked Crime Time's entrance.
yeah.
R.I.P. Chad Gaspar, but I really love Prime Time's entrance, and I know that's not great. I know that it was probably not the best team for cultural representation. I understand that, but at the time when I was watching it as a kid, I was just happy to see other black people, to be honest,
Yeah.
and also I was just like, I like this, like I think it's fun, and they were fun to me, and so when it was like yo yo yo, like the yo yo yo.
Yeah.
You knew what was about to happen. You knew you were going to have a fun time. You knew not to take it too seriously. Like, I thought everyone was in on it. I wasn't aware that, like, people might be, like, offended by it. I just assumed that we were all in on it. I was like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's clearly a bit. Like, these guys they're not actually,
Yeah.
so I like the yo, 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 grab a 40 and check your rollies. It's crime time. And it's like, Brooklyn, Brooklyn. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
And so New York, I was like, hell yeah. Like that's where we were New York. So I was in it for it. Um, I like Crime Time. Another controversial opinion, Rob Conway's entrance music. We was like, just look at me. It was so bad, it was good. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It was so bad. I just hated him so much because his entrance music was so bad. And I realized that it's exactly what you want when you're a mid card heel. You know what I mean? Like you're not fighting for the main championships or whatever, but you're a mid card heel. How are you gonna get that heat quick? Because you don't got a lot of time, but how you can do that? Rob Conway, his music hits, and you just boo because you're like, this is so lame. Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Music.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of any other big. I like Finn Balor's original entrance music.
Yeah. Yeah.
The da 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 da. The Catch Your
Yeah.
Breath, I think it was called. Da da
Yeah.
da 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 da. Great,
Yes.
fantastic. We love.
My guilty pleasure theme. I mean, obviously the Brood is like one of my favorites, just
Got the
the
Brood,
whole
yeah.
look and everything. But my like gun to my head, I would say that Deuce and Domino, all about cool. I mean that there's a part in my heart that like I will scream it from the rooftops if given the
The
chance.
good
I
entrance
love that.
song. Like, what are you gonna do?
It's like such a throwback and just incredible. But you
Yeah.
know, it's great too because again, growing up in the 80s, you got very it was something, but it was very plain. It was like one note, like, you know, if you weren't Hulk Hogan,
Yeah, yeah. Because
but
again, it was like like it was like the color, like the outfit, a lot of like the entrance. You didn't really get it the same way because you weren't like buying singles. You
yeah,
bought albums.
yeah,
Then like nowadays, like it's like, oh yeah, you can get a wrestler's entrance music and just listen to it.
yeah,
Before it was just like, let's get to the wrestler. Like it doesn't really matter.
yeah,
Like nowadays, I'm like, nah, it matters a lot. Shawn
yeah,
Michaels, Sexy Boy, when
yes,
that pops off, you heard it at NXT just the other.
yes,
Like people were chanting. It's good. It's
yeah,
just good.
yeah. And it's funny to me that one is a like a Jimmy Hart joint too. Like that's not even a Jim Johnston. That was I
Yeah.
mean,
Like sometimes you just nail it. One of the critiques I've had in like the PG era to a little bit into like past the Thunderdome
Yeah.
was that everybody's entrance music sounded the same or so generic that it didn't really matter.
Yes.
Like I like a drop. I like a
Yep.
thing that happens right at the top so I know who's coming out. Like again, best example of this, even though it's not my favorite entrance music, you hear the glass break, it's
It's
freaking
on.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. You
Yep.
know, you hear the car crash, freaking Mick Foley. You
Yep.
know, you hear the gong,
Yep.
it's the Undertaker. One of my favorite things now, or before and now, is you hear the lights turning off,
Yep. Yep.
you know, and both the old "Let Me In" Fiend
Yep.
song
Yep.
and the newer "Call on Me, Brother," whatever, Shatter, the
Yep.
newer one, both of them
Yes.
like perfect.
Yep.
You got a little, you know what's happening. It's about, you know, even the play, the "Worried that you're our friend, and this
Yep.
is a friendship that will never end." And at least we know, like, oh, this verse is coming out. Like, yeah,
Yep.
here we go. So I was at a Wild game, a Minnesota Wild game one time, and they were playing wrestlers' entrance music for a quiz. And it was like a lot of the new people, and people had no idea because they all really sounded similar.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And I think that hurt them at like Royal Rumble and stuff too, because
Mhm.
like, especially with that weird like ramp thing that they do now to
Yep.
get people in, like the crowd doesn't even know who it is, especially like, like when Jordan Grace would come over or something, it just not.
Yeah, mid card, like it hurts the mid card more than it
Yeah.
hurts everybody else because the top stars are already top.
Yeah.
Like the top stars are already top, so we already know. Like we already
Yeah.
know that they're there, and just, but like Cora Jade and like and women wrestlers specifically,
Yes.
like the women
Yes.
roster definitely get hurt by this a lot
Yep.
more. Is that when your music drops and we don't know who is coming out, we
Yep.
don't know to cheer, and then you walk out and you look like you're less of a star. Therefore, we see you as less of a star.
Yes.
So, a great example of a good professional wrestling entrance from an indie wrestler around here in Minnesota, Darren Corbin, who is one of our first wrestling alumni over here in Minnesota. He comes out a lot of times to, what was it? Hello from Adele, the other
Oh,
side or whatever. And so it's like, hello, and everyone boos because
yeah.
they all they have to do is hear that.
Yeah.
Hello, it's me, and then everyone starts booing their heads off, and it's so great. And that's one of the things I liked about AEW, which
Yes.
I think WWE should really get on board with, is like, let's have songs that people know,
Yeah. Yep.
the wrestlers' intros. CM Punk did massive work with Cult of Personality.
Yep. Yep.
Ronda Rousey, whether you like her or don't,
Sure.
like Bad Reputation, you heard it and you're like, oh, shit, I know this song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so WWE has the money too. Like, I get they don't want to pay the royalties or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's like you have the money.
Yeah.
Like, if someone wants to be, what was it? What did the Elite came out to? Carry On My Wayward Son or whatever
Oh, yeah.
was it?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't even really like the Young Bucks like that.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, that's dope. Like, I would
Yeah.
start watching them more if every time it's like, carry on the silhouettes. Ooh,
Yep. Yeah.
so cool.
Yep. Well, and I definitely think too, like they've been doing a little bit more where they are bringing people over and all that. So now could be the time. But my question to you again, just from a critiquing standpoint, what are your thoughts on, or I guess I should say, do you believe in Joe Hendry?
Where is it?
Exactly. Exactly.
No, okay, so here's the thing about Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry reminds me, again, it is the inverse of the Robert Conway concept.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you
Yes.
can have an entrance music that's so bad that it's good for both a heel and then a face.
Yes.
I remember when I first started having Joe Hendry pop up, because I fell off of TNA, I'm not going to lie, I fell off of TNA. Or Impact. I stopped watching Impact, I could say. I liked TNA a lot, and I fell off of Impact. And so I started seeing this person and this concept, and I was like, I'm trying to I'm trying to get it. Like I'm trying to understand it. Is he magic? Like is what genre of wrestling is he?
Yeah.
Because it helps. And I realized that his genre is a fourth wall breaking genre. He is a Deadpool of sort. Like he is
Sure.
like how when Kevin Owens references the things that like, oh hey, like you can't come out. We didn't say your name. Like we did. Why are you
Yeah.
playing music? Like he is that, but also somehow still in canon. Like
Sure.
he can teleport around when you say his name, but because that's what his character can do. It says it in his song,
Yeah.
and then like he sings it, and it's not great. And there's a
No.
bunch of different bits to it, like the wave your hands. Man, half the time people didn't even know that part came because
Yeah.
but he never gave up on it, and now people do it, and it looks really great. Shout out for his run on both NXT and TNA.
Yeah.
I am a little confused why they didn't put the strap on him, to be honest. Like
Yep.
I'm a little confused on that. Like it seems like another it's to me, it seems like another Fiend situation.
Sure.
Where they go like, oh, the character's so great, we don't need to put a belt on him.
Yeah.
Everybody loves him, so we can just keep the belt for other people, and he'll just be around. And I'm like, that only works for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they should have put the strap on. You could take it right off him,
Yeah.
and have him like have to fight back to like get back to that area. But like he was red hot. And if you put a belt on him, then everyone's going to ask who this person is. I think that was a bad call. I like Joe Hendry. I don't particularly think his move set is all that spectacular.
Yeah.
We love a chokeslam.
Yes. Yes.
We love a chokeslam. I'm glad that like someone's bringing back a chokeslam. Like I kind of pine for the days where the only people who did the chokeslam were people who were like really, really big.
Yeah.
Because it just made it feel like, oh my god, chokeslam. Like, except for obviously the Hurricane can always chokeslam people.
Yes. Yes.
The Hurricane
Yeah.
is one of my favorite bits in
Yes.
professional wrestling. And I remember when I played Here Comes the Pain for the first time, thinking the Hurricane, because that's the guy I was like, well, I wanted to be the superhero, and
Yes.
realizing that weight classes existed.
Yes.
Because I would always be like, yeah, I got him. And then I just get beat up. I'm like, why can't I do this?
Yeah, that's something that I don't think that they think about as much in the modern games because I have 2K, I don't know if it's 24, I forget if
24 is the most recent, yeah.
Yeah, so 24, like I feel like with your characters you can literally like anybody can do anything to anyone. So
Yeah, and I was like, there's a makes you play the game differently if you're a cruiserweight or a light heavyweight.
yeah.
And I think it is a lot about wrestling psychology. I get that he's a big guy. So it's not like he's like not a big guy. He's a very muscular dude.
Yeah.
But something about a one-handed lifting somebody up by their neck and throwing them down the ground, that seems like it's a monstrous move. And I would like to see that protected, such a controversial word in our fandom. But like I would like to see it protected more for those big guys. For example, Omos should have had a chokeslam. Yeah. I don't understand. He is 7'5".
Yeah.
Give him the chokeslam. Why is anyone else doing it? That alone would make him feel like a monster. And unlike Khali, I believe that he'd be able to do it safely. He's very, like, you could tell that he's a really safe worker just by what he does. So a big chokeslam from that high up, put him in front of, shout out Akira Tozawa for being one of the best sellers in the business.
Yes.
But put him up against Akira Tozawa, have him chokeslam him from the top of his height, and put him down like that's a highlight reel. Yeah, it's a highlight reel. The guy will get over so much because people have him do that. Yeah, Omos is. If we want to talk about people, Omos has been done dirty. Yes. And I am disappointed because how on earth do you not get that guy out?
No.
How?
No.
Like how? It makes no sense.
It really doesn't, especially based off of just like the idea that if you again, they talk about it a lot. Like if you created someone in the lab to like, you have to have somebody that looks like that in wrestling. You have to have someone
Yeah.
who like, if you said, I've always heard like, I forget who did it. Maybe it was Vince or whatever, but they called it the airport test. Like if you walk through an airport and you saw someone, like that's all I could look at if I'm walking through an
Yeah,
airport.
it's Omaha. These massive.
Yeah,
I personally, this was my thing. I wanted them, and I know people don't like legacy acts, and I get that.
yeah,
I wanted them to start a new APA with Omaha. I would have find a maybe a smaller, but like
yeah,
a talker, someone who could talk, someone who could do most of the promo,
yeah,
and have them be like the Acolyte Protection Agency.
yeah,
They are like hired guns, and like
yeah,
they come out and beat someone up, and then all you have to do is put a mic up to Omos,
yep,
like an Enzo concept.
yes,
Like the guy is
yeah,
running around, he says a thing, and he goes like, and then we got something to say to you, and then Omos takes the mic, everyone's waiting, and he just goes, "Damn!" Like that would have been
yeah,
you could do it. You pass the torch to a new group of people. You keep the APA alive as
yeah,
like a
for sure.
concept. And Omos would have done wonders with that. I think. I don't know who would be his JBL at the time of his run, but like
Yeah.
you could have figured it out. I'm sure. I'm
Oh,
sure you could have found somebody in the back. There's so
yeah.
many people that are rocking at that time. You could have found somebody
Yeah,
to do
it's
it.
it's crazy. I mean, and you look at that too, and that's the problem that I think is the maybe like one of the biggest problems that I don't know if everybody's talking about right now or not, but I think that there's almost too much talent right now for the amount of shows that even if you
Mm-hmm.
include, you've got Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, Ring of Honor, TNA, New Japan, like there's just it went from like here's like in the territory days, there's like 10 people in each little area, but now it's like there's just so many, and a lot of these people
Yeah.
get lost in the fold, and that's tough, I think.
It's tough. The mid card has never been so flooded. It has never been so saturated. And you can't get to the top unless you pass through the mid card. And if you only get 2 minutes on TV to tell your story, like the New Day is like breaking up, that should be one of the biggest stories. And it feels kind of like an afterthought right
Yeah.
now because
Yep.
there's so many, because they had said for 10 years now that they would
Yeah.
never break up the New Day. And
Yep.
now they're doing it, and it sort of feels like an afterthought because
Yeah.
there's so many people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I'm trying to decide like how, I don't even know how you would fix that. I don't know if that's something you can fix. There's just so many good people. I think that this is one of my big things, bring back stables. And what I mean by bring back stables, the Judgment Day is a great example of that.
Sure.
Um, a stable is more than 3 people.
Yep.
Bring back a stable where there is like 7 people in, because yeah, not everyone's going to do everything every time, but you get a lot of people's screen time, and
Yep.
you can kind of like you can coincide a bunch of your wrestlers. If
Yep.
the Judgment Day, there's 5 people in the Judgment Day right now: Finn, JD, Carlito, Dom, and Liv. There's
Yeah.
5 people in the Judgment Day. I don't think I'm
Yep.
and Finn.
Yeah.
Like you don't have a whole lot, but that's a good number. If
Yeah.
you get another group of 6, now everyone is on TV. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, like, there was again the New Day really changed this when the New Day showed up. They did their Freebirds rule, and there was only 3 of them,
Yep.
and the Shield and the Wyatt family, and it was just three, 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 three. It's like, nah, dude.
Yeah.
DX had like 1,000 people in it. The
Yep.
NWO had 1,000 people in it. The Bullet Club has 1,000. That's a page out of the New Japan.
Yes.
Like, make stables, make houses. Everybody shows up, and they don't always talk to each other, but then you can get them
Yeah.
on TV, because yeah, it's a little saturated.
I would say, I mean, just based off of the amount of people that both of those, like DX and NWO had at one point, that probably you and me were also members and we just didn't know it because it
No,
was.
I would love to be a member of. I have the in my stuff. I have the Nur-D Club.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I have the Nur-D Club, and I have like the shirt, and because it's like, yeah, of course, like everyone was a part of it, and that's what makes it fun. And then you can branch off people as people start to get over.
Yeah.
Another bit is like utilize the internet more.
Yeah.
Utilize the internet more. And I know they've tried. I know they've done the speed,
Yeah.
and then they've done there was main event.
Yeah.
But like I honestly, I know it probably wouldn't go over, but I really think you could just do like a internet only show
Sure.
and like allow them to cut promos and get real fancy with it and like have a belt, but it's just online. Like it's just in the matches online, and yeah, the champ might come on television every now and then, like I'm the champ, I'm the internet champ. Da 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 da. You can maybe have some of those stories bleed on to primetime just to give them a little push, but like have it all self-contained on the internet. Like you have to watch this to get it, and then allow people to kind of expand a bit, and you don't have to eat up your TV time because Raw is still 3 hours.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And now it's moving to Netflix, and so we're gonna figure out what that looks like, and maybe we can have some more time with some more wrestlers just because it's on Netflix, and you're not hurting for commercial time. But
Sure.
like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel first of all, seen, heard, I feel a lot better today. I definitely want to get you back at some point. I know that you've got so much going on, and I want to talk about that too. I've been again, as I consume music, your music, I go to Spotify or I'm still like an old school. I do the website. I get on there. I look at stuff too. But
website.
you know, what are the best ways that you would want people to find out about you, find out more about you?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this too. I'm back. I'm in New York, and I'm pretty close to the city, and I see that a lot of the shows that you have are based out of like where you're at. But do you also get do you travel more?
Oh, yeah, we tour. Yeah,
Okay.
we tour. We toured last year. We did the East Coast last year.
Okay.
We're hoping to do the West Coast next year. And we go wherever, honestly. Like this is my full time. So like
Yeah.
I go wherever we can all the time. We have a lot of cool shows coming up in the Midwest, but we also have big shows coming out I think we have Colorado coming up later this year. We have we're trying to get down to LA because we have a lot of people in LA going through, and I have a lot of people in New York who've been asking for me to come through, and so we're trying to find a time and a venue and a place that makes that work. So let's be on the lookout. We got some stuff. We might be in Philly later on this in the winter.
Okay.
So we go everywhere, and the best way you can find all of those things is to follow me on socials. So it's Nur-D Rocks, N-U-R-D Rocks, like multiple Dwayne Johnsons. It is on everything. So Twitter, Instagram, or I should say the artist formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me on all of those places. You can also go to nurdrocks.com. That's nurdrocks.com. And you can find me there. You can find where we're going to be next. You can see a whole bunch of cool stuff on there. We got a fun things. You can get over to Nur-D TV, where I have television shows that I've made with my friends. It's really fun. It's like Disney Plus for artists. It's actually really dope over there. So you check that out. A lot of cool spots, a lot of cool places. And yeah, just follow me on all the things. I'm real responsive. So I enjoy chatting with
you. Things aren't always great in this world, but it's nice to see that there are people out there that I know, like, at least where you're at, it's good, because you're there. So just keep doing what you're doing, man. And thank you for taking your time today. It's really important.
That's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to take this. This has energized me for the rest of my day. So I'm ready to rock.